Oh, testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order, and I'll welcome our new commissioners and colleagues, Katie Koba and Rochelle Luther, to the commission. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you. Next, I'll call for a motion and second to grant a leave of absence to Commissioner Nemi, who's out of town.
So second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right. I'll call for votes for and against the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next, motion. I'll call for a motion and second for approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of June 8th, 2022, and the special commission meeting of June 28th, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. I'll ask Antoinette Chandler, who's sitting in for Curtis today, for the executive director's report and her remarks.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning, commissioners. I'd like to start off by just welcoming our new commissioners, Katie Koba, State of Oregon Chief Operating Officer and Department of Administrative Services, and Rochelle Luther, Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Chief Human Resources Officer for Columbia Sports. And just very grateful to have you here. Looking forward to having an opportunity to work with you. So I'm going to thank you again in advance for your service. At this point in time, I will like to acknowledge the Port's monthly safety champions. Well, while we're bringing that up, I will turn it over to Stan and just ask him There we go. There we go. Great. Again, like to acknowledge and just say thank you again. We have Matt Allen, Scott Bruce, Jesse Harden, and Steve Lynch for their continued commitment and service to the port in terms of advancing our safety objectives. So thank you again for being nominated as safety champions. And with that, I'm going to ask Stan for his safety message.
Thanks, Antoinette. Today's message is a report on the port's fiscal year progress on our employee safety and health journey. The port continues forward on our journey to advance our employee safety culture. Over the fiscal year just closed, we further integrated safety into our job roles, enabling the capability to have safety conversations in the workplace among supervisors and contributors. I want to highlight a few of the significant accomplishments that will have enduring value as we continue to progress and mature our safety and health. Benefiting from safety culture advancements, we sustained our organizational learning, the reporting of 104 safety incidents across the enterprise, including 37 near misses. We drove process rigor of safety incident investigations to understand the facts of the incidents and use our learning culture to prevent reoccurrences. We averaged over 8 safety hazards reported per month before an incident occurred. Our corrective action plan database drove accountability by tracking the issues, incidents, and hazards through team mitigations. The port noted a record 212 safety issues with 423 associated improvement tasks to a closure rate of 86%. We executed on documented business line and enterprise safety plans to address continuous improvement opportunities and add defenses from serious injuries. We engaged the enterprise to achieve 82% employee participation on the Caterpillar Employee Safety Perception Survey. The enterprise and most business lines showed significant improvement for our 2019 data. We are using the rich safety perception survey data to inform our work while constructing enterprise and business line safety action plans going forward. Our owner-controlled insurance program, or OSIP, for our T-Core construction project is operating at an exceptional safety level to date. Prevention through design is being used to enable safety work by employees after project turnovers from construction to beneficial use. Safety and health champions are being recognized and celebrated each month. We continue to execute our safety and health programs to maintain and often exceed OSHA compliance. Employee safety and health is a guiding principle on how we perform work at the port. Leading metrics and protocols have strengthened the safety principle throughout the port. Hurdle for professional safety practice consultations.
Thank you, Stan. So we have a lot of exciting things going on around the port, and it's always nice to have the opportunity to be recognized for, I think, with the great work that we're doing here at the port. And so our parking and rental car facility at PDX recently took home first place in the Daily Journal of Commerce, the top project awards in the infrastructure and telecom category. So very delighted about that. And the Port Business Journal also is honoring the rental car facility in Concourse B in August as part of their Transformational Projects Award as one of the most transformative projects in the region. So continuing to do great work and just delighted to be acknowledged for doing so. We also have some great news from the Department of Transportation. Last week, we found out that we were awarded $18.4 million from the bipartisan infrastructure law for improvements for our heating and cooling systems that will dramatically lower energy demand by we're estimating about 83%. So this is really a fantastic project. And we just want to say thank you to our senators, our congressional delegation for advocating for this critical important work to advance our sustainability efforts at the airport. And as you'll hear about later this morning, the first Y columns for our roof are being installed. They were installed overnight on July 11th. This is really a significant milestone in the PDX Next roof project. The roof cassettes themselves are scheduled to begin moving in September. And again, you'll hear more about that later in today's meeting. And then lastly, last Thursday, we had the pleasure of hosting a retirement and thank you event for Congressman DeFazio last week. Very great to see so many commissioners, our community advisory committee members there to thank him for his tireless leadership on so many important issues for aviation, transportation, and marine in our region. And I'd just like to say I had the pleasure of attending that event, and it was really just a wonderful, well-attended, well-planned event. And it was great to just have people in person gathering together and networking and communicating in a way that we haven't really had the luxury to do for some time now. So it's wonderful to be back. And at that event, we announced that there will be we'll be dedicating the TriMet stop at PDX to honor Congressman DeFazio for his work to bring the Red Line directly to the airport. So that's it for the Executive Director's report, and I'll turn it back over to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Antoinette. Do we have any questions or comments with respect to the? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a motion and second for approval of the Executive Director's report.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion. I'm sorry, for a vote for and against the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll open the public comment period. Written comments regarding the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program were received from Laura Edmonds, Sarah Duckwall, Zach Lindahl, and Bob Grover. Those comments were shared with the Commission yesterday and are in your packets today. We also received a copy of comments from Charla Moffett this morning. Charla is joining us on Teams to provide additional comments. So if you are there, we're ready for you.
Good morning. The buttons were stuck, so I apologize. Good morning, President Caprill, Comas, and commissioners. My name is Charla Moffett. I'm the Director of Energy, Environment, Natural Resources, and Infrastructure for Oregon Business and Industry. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. Today, I'm here to speak on behalf of 45 business organizations and their collective members to support a new multimodal I-5 bridge that will move people and goods safely and efficiently. As you know, a number of votes will take place over the next several days, including at the Port Commission meeting here today. We must replace the bridge now to address the vulnerability of the two structures to seismic activity. The new bridge also must move people and goods efficiently as our region continues to grow. The transportation infrastructure needs I apologize. I lost my place. We appreciate the effort undertaken to replace the bridge. The inclusion of light rail and safe routes for pedestrians and cyclists will help move greater numbers of people over the bridge more efficiently. Yet we remain concerned that other needs have not been adequately addressed. These include the need for additional capacity to serve commuters and businesses that rely on the timely delivery of raw materials for use in manufacturing and the movement of finished products to markets. The transportation infrastructure needs of our region in 2022 are dramatically different than in 1917 when the older northbound span opened, or even in 1960 when the, quote, new southbound span was completed. Even with the addition of multimodal options, we worry that the overall future capacity needs of the bridge have not been met. Our region continues to grow and employers are recalibrating their workforce to be highly mobile. In addition, the single auxiliary lane under consideration will not serve freight needs adequately. The Interstate Bridge Replacement Program estimates that the addition of a single auxiliary lane will improve travel times by a mere handful of minutes. It does not serve our region to add a fraction of the capacity needed to improve the 7 to 10 hours a day of congestion that currently persist. The modified locally preferred alternative may satisfy the vocal few who would prefer no expansion of vehicle capacity or no new bridge at all. However, our transportation system is integrally connected to our economy and the new bridge must better convey the more than $70 million in freight it carries every day. We support the replacement of the bridge, but remain concerned that it lacks adequate vehicle capacity and urge you to consider an option that provides for 2 auxiliary lanes in each direction. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much for providing testimony. Does anyone have any questions? We'll have a presentation later in our agenda on this item. Any questions at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is a consent item. I'll ask if any commissioner wants a presentation on the consent item. It was included in the presentation materials. The title is Equipment Procurement Contract, Reach Stacker Container Handlers Marine Operations. Seeing none, I'll call for motion and second for approval of the consent item.
So moved.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Our first action item, I'll call Keith Levitt to introduce it. It relates to the interstate bridge replacement.
Good morning. So you all in the last meeting heard from the project team. I know you got a full briefing. I think you're aware that the port is among 8 stakeholder partner agencies that have been engaged in the work to bring the locally preferred alternative forward. We do know that the TriMet, Port of Vancouver, City of Vancouver took action earlier this week. Today, in fact, the Port of Portland is being asked to endorse this proposal. City of Portland and Metro. I think I got all of those. And CTRAN endorsed last night. Great. So what we have before you is the resolution that is very similar to what those other partner agencies are being asked to support. And and then in all of this is in preparation for the bi-state committee that will take final action on the bridge replacement LPA. So with that is Ivo Trummer, our State Affairs Manager, who will present the item.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. For the record, Ivo Trummer, State Affairs Manager for the Port of Portland. I'm here to briefly introduce the next agenda item. Proposed resolution in front of you endorsing the modified locally preferred alternative for the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. If I may remind you, at your commission meeting last month, you heard from IBR Program Administrator Greg Johnson, who described in great detail the process on the alternatives that were considered by the IBR that led to the modified LPA. As Greg described last month, the modified locally preferred alternative identifies only the foundational elements that will move forward with evaluation. Process that will include studying the potential benefits and impacts, as well as robust process for public comments. The key really is foundational elements. Much of the design details, including, for example, the overall height of the bridge, will be studied in the process going forward. The modified LPA in front of you represents really only about a 2% design at this stage, whereas the mayor of the City of Vancouver has said it's the second step of a long journey, only the second step of a long journey. To be fair, she's much more eloquent than me, so I'm not doing her credit here. But further work will also include the preparation of an in-depth greenhouse gas analysis, which will include consideration of climate change, air quality, carbon emissions, and vehicle miles traveled, as well as an equity report assessing the impact of tolls on low-income people and the overall impact of the project on low-income and minority populations in regard to affordable housing and employment. The port is obviously not responsible for funding or constructing the interstate bridge replacement, but the port's general support for the program, along with numerous other public entities in the region which were listed, indicates a recognition of the importance of this effort for the movement of goods and travelers, the urgent need for a seismically stable bridge for the region, and the port's overall support for the essential features of the bridge. The Director recommends adoption of the resolution. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. I appreciate both the presentation last month and the opportunity to speak to you now about this. I guess one question, you mentioned foundational elements, the capacity concerns that have been brought to our attention. Do the foundational elements allow for reconsideration of additional capacity, or are those pretty much set at this point?
What is said is that Oxland, that will be studied in terms of how does that impact traffic. That shows that more capacity is needed. It will on board. Early indications are that it will likely work.
Thank you. I'll open for other commissioners. Any questions? Commissioner Holleran.
One, just thank you for the work on this. And I recognize that there is a wide variety of perspectives on how to move forward on this project. But I do think it's important for the port to endorse the process and to allow the public comment and those. But one thing is clear is that the bridge does need replacement, and not wait for it to fall into the river to make that call. And it's antiquated, it's failing, and it needs replacement. So I think the process to move forward and its impact on the port is significant because of the volume that moves across it in both people and commerce. But so I think it's important for us to take action here, and appreciate this. And
Thank you, Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to thank you for the work that's going into this. This is big work, and quite often today we're faced with making decisions around things that have been created to serve this community at a time when we didn't have a line of sight into everyone who we needed to serve in every way that we needed to serve. So I'm encouraged when you talk about foundational elements, housing, access, multimodal. I mean, those are important considerations. It's equally important that the voices that support that see their fingerprints on the final product. So I understand that this is at a very early design stage, but I hope that the work is focused on what should it look like versus what do we think today. Because what we think today is the nature of the challenge that we face right now. We're looking at a 100-year-old structure that was built at a time when we were building for today and not tomorrow. So I encouraged it. I would support it, but to the point that it really becomes an opportunity for inputs from places, from organizations, from stakeholders who may not have played as an active role in the initial creation of the historical bridge.
Commissioner Holleran.
No, I would just move that we endorse the Interstate Bridge Replacement Modified Locally Preferred Alternative as proposed in the Executive Director's Report.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Call on Vince Granado for our next agenda item.
Good morning, Commissioners. George and I are here. I think this is 842nd time on this particular project. It's Terminal Core. It's a very big moment here that we've got in front of you. So I'd also like to acknowledge Dave Garski, who is here from the Hoffman-Skanska Joint Venture Team. He's project executive, and they're doing a terrific job on the program itself. We're here for an amendment to the Hoffman-Skanska contract, and we've been talking about some of the budget challenges that we've experienced here over the last year or so, and we have gotten to a guaranteed maximum price with the Hoffman-Skanska team. And George here has some details that we're going to get through. We are over budget, and we had assumed that we were going to be over budget, and it's a significant number than what we had anticipated. So the first order of business for us was really just to reconcile that number and get clarity about how did we get to this point. And George will talk a little bit more in detail about that. I think for us, what we feel very good about is that we have the right team who's working on the project. It's a complicated project. We knew it was going to be complicated, but there's certainly been a number of conditions that have happened over the last couple of years, certainly with hyperinflation, supply chain, a war in Ukraine, so on and so forth. And obviously COVID has impacted us as well. So we're here to get request your approval for a budget increase. We'll give you a little update on the construction as well. I think we've got some photos in there, which is moving along fairly well. But it's a really big moment for us at this point in time. And so I'm going to let George go from there.
Thanks, Vince. Good morning. Next slide, please. So today we're asking for a public improvement contract with the Hoffman-Skanska JV for a little over $828 million. Next slide. So 2022 has really been about finalizing the GMP, bidding. We completed the design packages the end of last year. Bid some of the major packages, bid package F.2, receiving permanent approval from the city of Portland, who's been a real partner for us in this project, starting the structural demo, establishing GMP, and then getting airline approval. Since mentioned, airline approval for an additional $500 million for the project, which was received last month. So now the remainder of the year is about installing the roof. So as Antoinette mentioned, we installed the first four of the 36 Y columns were installed over the last couple of nights, and over the remainder of the year we'll continue to install the roof, finalize some of the bid packages, and then proceed to the remainder of the construction next year. Next slide. Slide, please. There we go. Thank you. So we completed the seismic upgrade of the existing 1956 building in April timeframe. Started the structural demo. So here's a picture of the end of April of the Oregon Market area. You can see some of the demo of the atrium over top of the central area, kind of in front of where the donut shop was before. You can see the curtain wall off. But a lot of work was still occurring at this point in the alleyways. You can see a lot of the subgrade work still ongoing and being prepped for the work that continued to go on for the next couple of months. Next slide. And then this slide is about 2 weeks ago. Next slide. There we go. Thank you. So about 2 weeks ago. So you notice the work in the alleyways complete. It's set up for a crane pad. We're really out of the ground, which is really a key point for the project. Structural demo has continued. The atrium's going. A lot of the steel, can't really tell from this picture, but all the roof is off of the old building. So what you're seeing there is the mezzanine floor, and even that has been further demolished since this picture. Next slide. You can see about a week ago. This is a picture from where kind of the old TSA areas. You see the slab being removed. A lot of, even in the last couple of days, the decking there on the right-hand side's out now. So that's being prepped for the column installation and the new roof that's going on. So actually, if you look at that, the floor of the old emplaning level, the floor of the Oregon Market is now the roof of the building. So those columns are being left in place because we'll be installing shoring towers to temporarily support the roof as it's slid over the rest of the building. Next slide. So Antoinette mentioned a couple of Y columns. Here's a picture from 2 nights ago of the first Y column being installed. Really did a quick job getting those done. We were actually planning on getting the 3rd and 4th installed tomorrow night. We're actually getting a jump on that. It went a lot quicker than we anticipated earlier. So the first 4 Y columns are installed, straddling Concourse D, and then the shoring tower. If you look out from the DE checkpoint, you can see these columns and the shoring tower in place. You go out to the terminal later. Next slide. The roof itself is essentially done right now. So this is a picture of the underside of the roofing. As we talked about in previous commission meetings, we constructed it remotely at about a 13-foot elevation, which was safer, more efficient. So we're now, over the next couple of months, we'll start deconstructing the roof. Next slide. And then here's a picture of, elevated picture of the roof. It pops up, there we go. So elevated picture of the roof. So now we're going to start deconstructing the roof to bring it in, slide it over the existing terminal building. So we'll separate the roof into half a football field in size sections, bring that over the terminal building. If you look in kind of the lower section of the building on the lower left, you'll see, or this picture, you'll see a lot of the red equipment there. That's the self-propelled moving transports to move the roof over in place. And in the upper part on the left side of kind of the wing portions of the roof, that's the shoring towers being constructed. So every couple of nights, the shoring towers will get moved over. And then starting the end of August, 1st to September or so, the roof modules itself will be brought over. And then for the remainder of the year, put over top of the terminal building. Next slide. So from a schedule perspective, we've been working on this project for a number of years. This is actually a culmination of about 4 years worth of work with the construction team to establish this GMP. We started their contract about early 2018. We anticipate being back to commission in the future for some additional approvals from Design Construction Administration, some other contracts that we needed for the project. From a big picture perspective on schedule, this establishing a GMP establishes our overall project schedule. We're looking at a May 24 completion for the ticket lobby and the western expansion. We'll then transition into reconstructing the nodes, which will be a lot of the same stuff we've done today. Demo the building, put the roof over top of it, and those will be complete the end of 2025. And then kind of the tail of the project drags on into 26, which is to get rid of the construction bypasses and reconstruction of a restroom where the current Alaska Lounge is. Next slide. We've had a series of amendments Commission has approved for the Hoffman-Skanska JV starting in May of 2018 with pre-construction services. In 2019, we brought in some other projects that made sense to do from a coordination and cost effectiveness standpoint, like the passenger boarding bridges and the terminally re-lamp. 2019 was about building Concourse B, which was complete last year. As we got in there early 2020, we built a logistics center where the roof is being built, did some of the prefab work, and we really kicked off the major work in February of 2020 with the prep work for the columns, which are now being installed. So that was opening up and clearing up about a 10 by 10 space for every column that drops in existing buildings, getting everything out of its way. As we got into 2020, really some of the early major work with structural work, the building envelope, the demolition, the early MEP, all those logistics really got us to this point. We were back here in front of Commission in February to some of the early mechanical, electrical, plumbing work prior to establishing his GMP. So we're to date almost $900 million approved by Commission. Next slide. So Vince commented on the budget challenges that we've been seeing overall in the project. It's about $500 million. It is a $500 million increase. We had established the estimate on the project at 60% design in February of 2020. At that point in time, we did some value engineering, and we thought as we went through 2021, we were about $20 to $25 million over budget. We then saw some significant impacts to schedule caused by the seismic upgrades of the existing 1956 slab and a series of unknown conditions that we just didn't know until we started demolishing the building. We then saw, as Vince commented, some of the hyperinflation, supply chain disruptions, wars, all kind of contribute to about $275 million with either material escalation and labor escalation. So the net result of these changes was a $500 million increase in budget, which has now been approved by the airlines. Next slide. With this contract amendment, the overall Hoffman-Skanska contract will be $1.727 billion. Commission to date has approved about $900 million. Today, we're asking for an approval for about a little over $828 million. Slide. Staff asks approval of the executive director's recommendation.
Thanks, George. I appreciate the presentation as well as all of the background information we've received on the budget increases. And I know it's been a really tough time and we're in good company in facing these challenges. I also appreciate the work that you guys have done with the general contractor to figure out whether we can have any savings here as we move forward and how we would split those savings amongst us if they occur. I want to make sure we get any questions answered before we take on the question, please.
First of all, I just want to thank you for all of the work and for making yourself available to me yesterday to ask a lot of questions as a new commissioner digging in, and it's such a big, important project. I really appreciated the information you were sharing with me. I was wondering if you would just share with the commission the biggest risks as you see going forward for the project and what we might expect.
Sure. A couple things. Let me just step back one. There was a slide that somehow we skipped that I wanted to make sure we referenced, and that was our overall budget that showed we're still tracking with about $110 million of contingency, which I think is about 10 to 11% of what is available in the overall project. The other part of that slide that I wanted to talk about is the small business participation. Right now, we're tracking between 18 and 20% overall from the Hoffman-Skanska JV, which equates to about $230 million of small business participation. From the design perspective, it's a little over 10%, which is about another $25 million. So the net result's about $250 million worth of small business participation on the project. So then go back to your direct question here is the biggest risk. Over time, I think the risk of change, if you asked us a while ago, it would have been completing design. It would have been seismically upgrading the building. It would be getting out of the ground. We've passed through some of those. Today, right now, it is finalizing the structural demo of the building. The team is really doing a great job now. I think they started a little bit slow, doing a great job now. That's anticipated to be done, predominantly done the end of July. Really, the next step is getting the roof over the existing building. So it's sliding that roof, which needs to be continually supported on the existing building, which is, there's just the calculations. And just if you get through that roof sliding, we then will have the roof over the building. We'll then put a temporary curtain wall to enclose the building and then just go through the next 16 months building it. But our biggest risk right now, I think, is the roof over place. And then for our perspective, it's controlling schedule. I think that's the biggest risk from a cost perspective, is maintaining the overall project schedule. So technically it's roof, but it's also schedule.
And I would also say that when you look at the risk items that we've kind of gotten past at this point in time, with this GMP, we've now gotten out of the risk of further material escalation. So we're 88% bid out at this point in time. We've got one more bid package to go. But with this, we have transferred that risk over to the contractor. If the costs come in less than what we're anticipating, we will pay only what the cost is, not what the bid has been. So we get out of that cycle. That's a good thing. We're out of the demolition for the most part, which is, we did absorb some cost from that as well. So the things that we've been worried about, we're moving past. So we feel good about that. It really, I'm with George. It's about the schedule and being able to maintain it and execute the plan. We have a plan, and the key is just to be able to execute the plan now.
The only other question I have is whether there are funding implications to this increase in the contract. I don't know, maybe you could address that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do so. I can tell you that the capital markets are still very active. We're going to be debt financing project in this addition. And I can tell you that the appetite from the investor community is still very strong. I'll give you an example. Denver Airport just came a couple of weeks ago with a $1.6 million transaction. And so we feel like with the timing that we have here, we'll be going back out into the market. We're tentatively scheduled between February and March. And, provided we don't have any major economic disruptions, I feel very confident that we'll be able to go out into the market, raise the additional funding, and do that in a cost-effective way. So I just want to assure the board that we are working now with a number of our banking partners and our financial advisors to think about those most cost-effective financing structures to be able to execute on our plan. So I'm very confident in the markets. Even if we do have, the CPI came out today, obviously 9%. We do know that economically there are some indications that we might be going into a slowdown. The Fed's talked about a soft landing. I don't know if it's going to be that soft, but certainly when we go out to borrow and those are the economic conditions, that means that our cost of financing potentially could be more favorable. So for us, following that yield curve and following where pricing is now and where it could be then, it might accrue to be beneficial to us. So I think the market will be there for us. It's still confidence in the airline industry in terms of a willingness to buy these bonds. And I think from a costing perspective, we'll make sure that we be very thoughtful about how we structure it so that it can long-term be very cost-effective for us and our partners.
Thank you.
And if I could just add one more comment related to the funding, and George talked about it, but we moved past it pretty quickly around the airlines are the ones that have to support this change. And so we worked through that process with them over the last couple of months, and we have to ballot the request, and we did do that, and it came back unanimous to support the project and the funding increase. They're the ones that are going to be the ones paying the bills. So we appreciate their support of this, and they understand the story and the message that we've had to deliver with them, and so they're very supportive of the program. And that was comforting to us as well. Nobody wants to be over budget, but the fact that our partners who are actually paying the bill were unanimous in their support was helpful.
Sandra?
Yes, thank you. I've appreciated, as you went through the litany of sort of updates and votes and funding that we've gone through over the last few years, it has been, I've appreciated the detail and the thoroughness that has gone into each one of those stages. And so I want to acknowledge that. Secondly, I also don't want us to lose, while we're talking about cost here, there's a larger story, and I don't want us to bury the lead. Some of the work that we're doing around innovation, some of the work that we're doing around shared prosperity, some of the work we're doing around timber technology and working with indigenous groups and sourcing. I mean, there's a lot that's going on here, so I don't want the number to bury it. Having said that, the additional cost, I'm trying to figure out how much of it is the result of discovery, what happens when you get into the ground and you find out what it is that you're working with, that there's really no way of knowing, versus the world that we live in now and how much it's changed over the last 2 years. Some of that is we discovered it, some of it is this was dropped on us, and there's not a lot that we can do. And I know it's hard to separate that $828 million into one of those two, but can you at least opine on that?
Sure. Let me just start at a broad level, George, and you can go from there. When we started having the conversations around the budget impacts, we had to ask ourselves the questions about, well, what are the alternatives of how to deal with this? And what we said was, we are going to stick to our guiding principles. We're not going to put this off and reduce our our shared prosperity commitment, our small business commitment. There were questions, an easy way to get some money here is get rid of the ground source heat pump. Well, that's in our environmental story. We're not doing that. We could have changed any number of different things. We could have changed the sourcing of wood, but we didn't do that. And we wanted to make sure that we were true to our guiding principles and not lose our vision in what we were trying to accomplish with this project. So we stuck to our guns on that. And we still, and we were able to explain that part of the story, I think, to our partners, that we didn't want to have all these outside influences take away from what we were trying to achieve to begin with. So that was I think, an overarching principle to what we had to do. So George, you want to talk about some of the specifics then?
Yeah, what I would want to focus on is there's been no necessarily scope change as we've went forward with the project. We haven't added scope. The building's the same size we always have. There's details that need to be developed, and that's part of it. We've been working on this project from a design perspective with both the ZGF design team and the Hoffman construction team, really for 3.5 years since we've established the budget with the airlines. So to go back specifically, there are some things that have discovered in that time, like demo of the 56 building, vast amounts of asbestos and lead that we didn't anticipate, the structural upgrade of the building that cost us schedule. So it's not just the direct cost of upgrading the building that until we pulled the building apart, we couldn't determine it. It's then the schedule delay that hit us. There have been changes in the procurement of TSA checkpoint equipment over the last few years. It's changed. The big picture, the net results probably in the $50 to $100 million range that have been discovery and things that we didn't know about. But I think the vast majority of it is really economic conditions that have really hit us over the last year. Because we felt very comfortable as a team that as we finished the design last year, we were very manageable. We were showing we were about $25 million over, but that was with a pretty significant contingency. We felt like we could have reduced the contingency and still been on budget. And it's only at that point forward that it's really hit us.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. I know it's a complex set of levers and one affects the other, but it's been a long journey. So not that we don't want to see you back here next month.
Just a couple of questions from me. One, will this increase still maintain the contingency around 10%, or are we beginning to use up that contingency given where we are in the project?
No, we are still at 10% going forward. We looked at it's 10% on the work going forward. So if you look at the $110 million in the whole project, it's less than 10%. But there's about $1 billion, a little over $1 billion worth of construction work to go, and that 10%. That contingency levels of keeping the 10% on the amount going forward.
And then is it our expectation that the small business participation goal will remain on this additional amount? We're talking another $500 million.
Yeah, we're actually meeting Friday to go through the proposal. The last major bid package, which was bid in February timeframe, we achieved about 22% small business on that. We're bidding this summer about 165. Some of it might pull out. Right now, it's projected to be about 21% on that, and meeting on Friday to go through and see if there's an opportunity to expand that further.
And then last thing, and this goes without saying, I heard you say, George, that one of our risks now is timeline, and I want to just say we need to maintain our commitment to safety despite our need to maintain a schedule that may be aggressive as we move forward.
Yep, we had even just earlier this week an issue that happened in the demo, and the joint venture shut down construction for a significant period of time to make sure everybody was continuing to follow the safety procedures. And we've had shutdowns as time has went on and continued focus on safety from the team. So no, that's number one focus for all of us.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, discussion?
Well, first, I want to thank you for executing on what's a really complex project, and it's specifically in terms of getting the airlines, our partners, who are going to be funding this on board in a difficult economic environment. This is an asset that will be with the region for decades, so this is really important work. So thank you for executing well on this. As we continue in terms of value engineering, in terms of recouping or getting savings, that I'd like the team to be focused on that as well. This is a significant jump, and if you can get that would be in all our interest.
One, I want to thank you, and I know that it's a very impressive project, and it's a very expensive project, and I think that the increased cost is quite explainable, and I think it's not unique to us as a big project. Other big projects are seeing labor escalation, raw material escalation, supply chain issues, the things that are impacting it. And I applaud the commitment to safety, to small and minority business, to keeping the schedule, to getting the airline support. We don't have a choice because we can't stop the project midway. We're committed to doing it. We're in a state of construction. We have a beautiful roof that has a great story behind it. But numbers like 1.7 billion and 800 million and 500 million are big pills to swallow. I know explainable cost, justifiable expense. We have to move forward. We can't stop where we are because we can't incur the cost increase. So, one, I applaud the commitment the team has made to managing things. And to that, I applaud your ongoing connectivity with the markets to assure that our credit, our ability to secure the funds to move forward is there. But for us as a commission to exercise our due diligence in making sure that we understand what these costs are and why. And I appreciate the fact that you have kept us well informed of the details of that. It's still hard to fathom that going forward, while I think you have contracted out and controlled much of the exposure going forward, that we're still in very volatile economic times, and we still have a long way to go to get to 2025 to finish this. And so I can't imagine that we don't incur additional unanticipated expenses as we move forward. But we have to do this. We have to endorse it, and as a commission, I think we have to move forward. It doesn't make it an easy pill to swallow. But that said, Madam Chair, I would move that that we support. I would move that the executive director's recommendation.
Thank you. Commissioner, please.
I just want to share our appreciations to the team for this amazing work. It's a big size of the project, and considering with everything's happening in the economy, and we are only with this over budget, I think that's something to be, I mean, it's hard, but you can get their airline to approve it. I just want to say thank you, the team, for the hard work. And also, I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Heller that we have no choice to move forward. And I wholeheartedly support it because this is not just for our airport, but for our community. So I just want to say thank you and support it.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Appreciate the conversation. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion on the item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our next agenda item will be introduced by Dan Pippinger.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. This item is to ask you for an equipment procurement contract for a fire truck. As you know, we do 24/7 emergency response on the airfield for aircraft emergencies, and we have a comprehensive asset management maintenance program for our equipment to manage our firefighting capability and cost. This procurement, which we'll talk you through, is uses a competitive purchasing program that's approved by the port's contracting. Here to introduce the topic is Brian Francis, mechanical project engineer, and Chief Rob Mathis, our fire chief.
Thank you, Dan. We get the next slide, please. Good morning, commissioners. Hope you're all doing well. We're here this morning to present an equipment purchase contract with Oshkosh Airport Products for the purchase of one specific airport fire truck in the amount of just under $1.5 million. Next slide, please. The Airport Fire Department has a fleet of very specifically designed fire trucks, similar to the one in the picture on the right-hand side of the slide, that are designed specifically for aircraft and airport-related fire department emergencies. Our department has 3 frontline trucks that are available 24/7, 365 days a year. And there are 2 reserve vehicles that are there should one or more of the frontline vehicles be out for maintenance or an unexpected failure. This equipment purchase will purchase one 3,000 gallons of water foam truck that has 420 gallons of foam on board. It will look very similar to the one in the picture. The selection was made around compatibility with the remaining fleet for both cost savings on training and maintenance with the fleet, as well as firefighter familiarization with the apparatuses. The current Foam Truck 87 that is a frontline vehicle will move to be a reserve status vehicle, and the 2001 reserve foam truck that we have will be sent to surplus. The next slide, please. Thank you. One specific item about this upcoming truck that is different from all the other ones we have is that we will be adding a boom-mounted roof turret to this apparatus that we currently don't have in our fleet. It has the ability for water and foam like a traditional roof turret would, but it has the boom that can be seen in the picture from the Port of Seattle's apparatus that will allow you to position the turret in a place based on what the driver of the apparatus needs. There's also, as you can see in the photo, a penetrating tip that will allow you to puncture the side of the aircraft in a specific location for fire suppression. And it can also be used for an elevated waterway for fast attack interior fire on an aircraft. Next slide, please. Thank you. With commission action today, the manufacture and delivery of the unit would go through Q2 of 2023, and it'll take a couple months after that for familiarization, training, installing other equipment on the truck before it is placed in service. Next, thank you. The equipment contract that we're discussing today is just under the $1.5 million. The training and inspection for the fire and maintenance is both for inspection of the vehicle at the factory, but also with the boom-mounted roof turret, there is cost in there for specific training for the firefighters to be able to use it. And there is money in there for training for our maintenance staff on this specialized piece of equipment. The equipment and radios is approximately $200,000, and that is equipment that we will purchase and install on the apparatus once it is delivered. The boom-mounted roof turret training aids is the $250,000, and that is going to consist partly of a partial fuselage section that we will install for a training aid so that they're able to practice puncturing the fuselage of an aircraft without damaging an actual aircraft. The contingency for the project is $220,000, which represents approximately 8% of the overall budget, which is $2.6 million. The funding source for this purchase will be the PDX Shared Cost Center. And based on the nature of the cooperative purchase program, the Port Small Business Enterprise did not establish a small business participation goal for this contract. And staff requests approval of the executive director's recommendation.
Thank you for the presentation. It makes a lot of sense to me. Chief, any other information you think we should take into consideration? Thank you. Any questions?
Not so much a question, but certainly I think it's a prudent investment. And hopefully the vast majority of the use of this equipment will be in training, literally in training and maintenance. And the last thing that I would offer, if you have no use for the 2001 Reserve foam truck, my grandson, who was 2 years old, absolutely loves. If you could ship it to Washington, D.C., I would be his top pop. So. But I would support it, endorse it.
Thank you. I'll call for motion in second for the recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is our agenda for today. The meeting's adjourned.